Okay, just this one and I'm done for doing Identities lore for a while. Certainly until Chapter 6 is out. Next we have Lure Association South Section 4 Ishmael. Within a beef noodle restaurant somewhere in the back streets, she was enjoying her lunch alone. Now, she doesn't have an aversion to hanging out with others, but she doesn't particularly like to either. The Lure Association normally dine in large, boisterous crowds. She felt different from them. She could have been part of that crowd if she tried, but she was more comfortable eating alone. Then she was interrupted in the middle of a meal, asking if it could wait. It couldn't. Work was keeping her busy. The owner understood her mild annoyance at being unable to finish her meal again. She asked for the usual treatment, which is pack it up and keep it until she gets back. And this isn't the first time this has happened. She talks on the line to her superiors, asking which way was it. She told whoever was on the line that she asked for that as she had trouble getting along with others. She'd like it if she could have her meals in peace at the very least. The noodles would be all mushy by the time she's finished. Asking if she should live exclusively on dumplings? When she had the suggestion of using U-Corp status preservation packaging, she asked if they knew how expensive that was. She hung up, not wanting to waste any more of her time, annoyed by the fact that she ordered a double portion because she'd be free that day. They keep telling her that she's the only one that they can trust with these jobs, so she can't just leave them hanging. She was indeed skilled among those that were part of Section 4 of Lure Association's Southern Branch. She specialized in quickly closing the distance for a close-quarter thrashing, which made her excellent at dealing with groups of foes alone. Yes, it doesn't mesh well with Lure Association's main expertise of coordinated defense. If she was the sociable type, she wouldn't have to desert her meal to catch up on a mission that was supposed to be embarked on simultaneously in the first place. So she took out her frustrations on the thugs that she was sent to pummel to death with her fire-augmented fists. With them being unable to stab through her clothes, she told them that it would take more than that to penetrate an association's attire. Her speed overwhelmed them, flustering the others around her as she raised the thugs as she was chopping down bamboo. She told them to come at her all at once. She wanted to take it out on them as her noodles were now soggy. This is likely similar to the She Association variants, except in this case, instead of attracting the attention of the She Association, she attracted the Lure Association's attention instead, an association that was the polar opposite of the She Association. One that specialized in all-out warfare, lacking in any subtlety. She appeared to do better here than She Ishmael, as she was in Section 4. This is despite her mindset of being mostly a lone wolf, as being, it's largely atypical of the Lure Association. She has problems getting on with others, which is why she didn't eat with her comrades, although she would work with them if she needed to, as coordinated defense needs more than one. She was apparently seen as indispensable, clearly good enough to be called on during her day off. She's able to take on groups of foes by herself. and she clearly needed to take her frustrations out on them as she eats soggy noodles often in the noodle joints that she frequents due to her being constantly interrupted in the middle of a meal. Yes, the Loo Association seems to be big on food. This also helped her deal with the traumas of the past. Then, adding to that, there was the mild annoyance of Loo Association South Section 4 Director Rodia, who acts a bit too casually for her liking, yet tolerates that as the director delivers when it matters. Now the Molar Boatworks fixer, Ishmael. She took off her helmet as she was getting steamed alive in there. She could hear her sighs and the sound of crab shells opening, filling the green, squelchy mud flats. That is, the back streets of District 21. She was hunting trash crabs, the mutated wildlife that lived there, that was hunted by the human inhabitants, who also hunted the unwary. Ishmael was getting the metal scrap off of the trash crab. It was added to the pile, which was the size of 2 trash crabs put together. She asked where that kid went to, asking if he went to get a wagon, not put together a new one. She needed a break. She wiped the sweat off her and sat on top of a trash crab shell. She brought the canteen to her mouth to quench her thirst. Unfortunately, the bottle of iced water had become lukewarm. It was also salty. The top came loose. She dumped the contents of it on her head in an attempt to cool herself down. She asked how much longer she had to keep doing that. She then recalled when she first woke up there. She went on that request into the library, which got her and the rest of those that were a part of her office killed. She was brought back, but she was unable to choose where she would come back to. She had nothing on her, and even before she registered where she was, as in where there was, a trash crab was aggressively crawling towards her. She faced it completely unarmed. When her beating down of the trash crab was witnessed by a local, the owner of the nearby boatworks offered to buy the scraps off of her after she killed the trash crab, and with their help, she opened her own boatworks. It would have been a challenge after that if the others didn't return as well. Their goal was to return to District 22, back where their office used to be, to get their old lives back. They've still got some ways to go in order to get to that point. She then decided to get back to work and kill some more trash crabs. While she was waiting for the wagon to get there. So she put her helmet back on and dove back into the lake, hunting more trash crabs with her harpoon weapon. Clearly in this reality, Ishmael has the role of Olga, although compared to Olga, she appears more professional, at least when hunting trash crabs. Not quite the alcoholic that Olga is, although she likely needs to stay focused on the task of hunting trash crabs, as they need to not only earn a living, get some trash crab meat to sustain them, but also to earn enough to get back to District 22 and rebuild their lives there, after they were taken by the library and then deposited to District 21, which is quite some distance away, even considering the scale of each district. It's no small journey, even without the border checks. Yeah, there's no escape from red tape, even if the library was responsible for that displacement. She, Sinclair, who is in Rain's role, along with whoever is in Mika's role, have a lot to work on before they can head back there, although their job from Limbus Company would somewhat help with that. Finally, we have Pequod Captain Ishmael. Captain Ishmael was shouting to all hands, thundering to all on board, slamming her giant harpoon upon the ship's deck, standing all in the middle of the wild and calamitous lake. Despite the ship swaying precariously, she wished to hear their voices, telling those dogs to answer. Heathcliff, the harpooner that was covered head to toe in tattoos, shouted, "Aye." Ishmael mocked the rest of them, mocking their silence. The others shouted, "Aye." The crew were united. Their screams were loud enough to be heard and easily made out from the roaring waves. She told them that they all know where the ship has set course to. It's why they've set a course to brave the waves head on. The others show no fear or anxiety, their eyes full of conviction, expecting this all along. She reminded them of what the waves bring. They intend to fell a whale, asking the others what whale that they were after. They all shouted, "The all-withering Crimson Whale," a long name that they had no trouble chanting in unison. This was apparently the wrong answer, as she shook her head. That whale was a accumulation of their goals, their tenacity, it's their purpose. They all shouted, "Aye." She went on to say that its terrible limbs will constrict around them, strangle them. Its nightmarish suction cups will attempt to latch onto their ship, onto the flesh of their dearest crew. Oh. She's after the hentai whale. That explains why tentacles are in the image. Why, Project Moon? Why must you bring that into this? Anyway, the others were silent, but the silence was not out of fear. They were smiling at this, a toothy grin as if something that they were looking forward to had arrived. She liked the looks on their mugs. This was as expected. Her crew had no fear towards the insignificant. They should concern themselves with nothing but the compass of Captain Ishmael. At the end of that path lies all of their victories, the purpose of that voyage. The others shouted, "Aye, Captain!" First Mate Yi Sang saw a storm ahead. Thunder and lightning struck at the wild sea. Well, it's certainly not a very, very frightening thing to him. He barged out of the cabins. He had a look of urgency, but not a look of fear. He had a slight smile. Captain Ishmael realized that time was upon them. The blinding strikes of lightning and heavy rainstorm raged over the Pequod and its crew. Yet none moved, none hid, none had their eyebrows twitch. She called to Yi Sang, who awaited her orders. She ordered him to leave the wheel to the second mate and give the order to stay on course towards the Crimson Whale. As soon as the second mate has the wheel, he must grab his harpoon and join her by her side. He will carry this order out. She then shouted to Heathcliff to wait for an opening at the stern of the ship, then make his strike count. Skewer the beast with all his might. He shouted, "Aye." As the crew exchanged rousing speeches with each other, something crimson began emerging from the depths of the lake. Approaching the water's surface, one of the sailors shouted where it was. the whale's tail opened. Ishmael said, "Welcome to my ship." She calmly watched as the whale's gargantuan body broke the lake's surface. She shouted at her crew to say her name. They shouted, "Ishmael, captain of the Pequod." She shouted back, "Indeed." She then twirled her massive harpoon before aiming it straight towards the whale's tail. She vowed to the crimson whale that it would know and call her name as well. It shall call her Ishmael. The gaslight inside her harpoon burned brighter and hotter, as though it was responding to the crew's passion, telling her crew to let the flames of her harpoon be their guide, and everything shall come to be. Her purpose and their purpose awaits. They shouted, "Aye," the burning fervor in their eyes, but their gaze was fixed onward, clear and focused. Ishmael took a sweeping look at her crew and their conviction. She alerted all hands before she leapt head-on against the advancing whale and ordered them to charge. Now, this is a world where Ishmael and Ahab have a role reversal, where Captain Ishmael even had the big spear in the prosthetic leg. A heretic as far as Die Nagel und Hammer is concerned, along with an overall psychotic personality. I suspect that if she, Yisang, and Heathcliff are there, then it's possible that Ahab, Starbuck, and Queequeg, who in that reality would have normal speech patterns, are part of the damned dozen. Yes, at least in that reality. We also find out that one of the three calamities, as it is in the main reality after Chapter 5 is done, yes, as in the whales that don't follow the rules of the Great Lake, the all-withering crimson whale is one of the other three, where it appears to be similar to an octopus or a giant squid, based on the suction cups being mentioned and the parts of the limbs being seen in the first image, involving Captain Ishmael. Yeah, the Indigo Elder, it's unclear if this will be the next target or one of the other two, but from what it was introduced as, it appears that this one withers its victims and its mermaids would take a withered form, possibly with tentacles. Ooh. A fate worse than death involving hentai. And what this whale delivers, it's from something that originates from the same country that sells dirty knickers in underwear, hotel rooms the size of coffins, and a number of survival horror series and RPGs. As for the harpoon, it appears to be fueled by gaslight. That which was within the harpoon. How fitting. One that would gaslight those that questioned her, blaming them for her actions, would have a weapon like that. Considering that her weapon also causes a mix of bleed and poise, the gaslight would appear to fuel additional impact, making the sharp harpoon bleed the enemy more. I suspect that either Don Quixote or Sinclair would switch roles with Pip, as that one would, well, either of those would fit well. If events went like in the main reality that we're following, then it won't end well for Captain Ishmael. Death would be a mercy compared to what would happen to her. I suspect that it would be a crimson gas harpoon EGO manifesting, considering that this was from a different whale. Also, if this identity is used against gas harpoon Ahab, the compulsion debuff becomes reverse compulsion, which regenerates 15 SP a turn. She even has special dialogue when, if Ahab says, "The fault lies with you, Ishmael, yet I'm the evil here," then Ishmael will say, "All my fault, you say? What's fault? I dare say it's all thanks to me. And during the final phase, specifically when she's defeated, Ahab will say, once an Ahab shall be Ahab evermore. A constant with the Ishmael variants is their dedication to their rules. With the She Association South Section 5 variant, she was dedicated to the art of assassination, despite her superiors making it harder for her, along with the other fixers that was part of South Section 5, including the director of it, Don Quixote. With the LCCB Assistant Manager variant, she was dedicated to scouting out the areas that Limbus Company wants the Before team to scout out, so that the damned dozen of that reality knows at least part of what they're up against, caring less about the expense of the ammo that's used, if it means that they live to speak of what they're there to find out. With the R-Corp 4th Pack Reindeer variants, she's dedicated to frying the brains of whatever the 4th Pack was sent to destroy, or rather the clones of that variant that was used as a template, who is also interested in investigating the past. With the lobotomy EGO sloshing variant, she found a course to follow in the TLA, even using the EGO that they found in the Lobotomy Corporation branch facility, although she was treated as a joke because of what she was wearing, and there was a concern that the EGO corrosion was only a matter of time. With the Liu Association South Section 4 variant, she was dedicated to the way of the flaming fist, to turn her enemies into charred corpses. Even if her loner mentality didn't quite fit with the Liu Association way of doing things, she was seen as indispensable enough to call her on her day off. With the MOBA Bootworks Fixer variant, she was dedicated to killing trash crabs, and earning enough to get her and those that was a part of her Fixer office back to District 22. After they were brought back to life, and then released from the library, and if she was as much an alcoholic as Olga was, she clearly avoided it when she was on the hunt. Finally, with the Pequod Captain Ishmael variants, she was dedicated to hunting down the Crimson Whale with the same psychotic zeal as Ahab did with the Pallet Whale, even to the point of making her crew as submissive to her will as she can make them. And both had ways of making them submissive. Often subtle ones. Yes, subtle ones. This shows that while dedication to something can provide purpose, it can sometimes point the one that has this in a direction that, well, doesn't end well. Ishmael was no exception to this, even in the main universe. Next time I do this, I'll be doing it with Heathcliff's Identities, along with the previous 5s that will have additions. Until next time, hail the rabbit!